Welcome back to our daily bedtime stories. The Gift of Gold by Dorothy Cohen, illustrated by Gillen Matthew. A long time ago, before there was light from lamps and water from taps, a young girl named Tandy lived with her grandmother in the heart of Africa. For many years there had been a drought. The cattle were dying of thirst and hunger, for nothing grew in the dry, cracked earth. The people believed that their village had been cursed ever since the chief's gold pebble had been stolen. The elders of the village sat with the chief, smoking their pipes and staring up at the stars and the big, round moon. What were they to do? Then, at dawn, the African sun crept over the horizon, hot and harsh. A young man had a vision. "The chameleon will bring us rain," he shouted. The villagers went in search of a chameleon. Dry twigs snapped under their feet until Tandy found something soft. "A chameleon!" she shouted. As she lifted the frightened chameleon, his eyes darted left and right. Then he shut them tightly, believing that this was his end. Africa would never be beautiful again. The villagers chanted and danced around the chameleon and buried him in a hole with his belly turned upwards. The sky grew dark and the moon disappeared as Africa prepared to rest. Then lightning flashed across the sky and thunder roared. The rain dripped from the stars into the dark cheek of night and soaked into the thirsty brown soil. The curse had been broken at last. Everyone but Tandy was happy. She felt sure she had led the chameleon to his death. At first, Tandy rose. The rain had stopped and the village was crisp and new. Tandy rushed to the place where the villagers had buried the chameleon. She dug furiously in the soft, wet ground until she found him, lifted him out, and stroked his body soft until he was breathing evenly. "Precious one, you have saved me from a certain death," he said. She placed the chameleon on a brown mat in her hut. "You are changing colour," she said in surprise. "I will teach you about changing colour," the chameleon laughed. "Who were you speaking to?" Tandy's mother asked. "I was talking to a friend," Tandy replied. "But there's nobody here. It's just your imagination. Anyway, I must rush to see the chief." She was putting on her finest cloth. "After all, we did bring the rain." "My name is Lovane," the chameleon said, snatching flies out of the air with his long, sticky tongue. "I have one favour to ask you. Will you take me to find my friend Tito the Tokolosh?" "I'm scared to wander far from the village," Tandy told Lovane. "I'm scared of the Tokolosh too." "Don't be afraid," Lovane replied. "You're wearing a green skirt, so you'll blend in with the background and no one will see you. It always works for me, and Tito is gentle and very fond of children." So Tandy set off with Lovane. She was worried that they were lost. "Stop worrying," Lovane said. "Tito will help us if we can't find our way back." Suddenly an ugly little man jumped out in front of them. He had a furry body and beady eyes peeped out of the tuft of bushy hair hanging over his forehead. He began to stride around Tandy. Tandy wished she had never seen Lovane. "Then maybe there will be no rain in your village," Tito said, staring straight at her. "How did you know what I was thinking?" Tandy asked in amazement. Tito laughed. "I know everything. I know my friend Lovane was in trouble, so I sent the rain." "Does this mean that the curse has been lifted from the village?" Tandy asked Tito. "Not a chance," Tito laughed. "I only wanted to save my friend's life. I don't have many friends because people are scared of me and I am terribly ugly." "You're not that ugly," Tandy said, and Tito seemed pleased. Let's talk while we eat," Tito said. He fed Tandy fruits and nuts, while he sipped on honeysuckle nectar and Lovane chomped on bugs. "When your chief was a little boy, he was my friend," Tito said. "One day I gave him my lucky gold pebble. He grew up to be rich and powerful. Then he forgot all about me." It is sad when people forget about their friends, Tandy said. Never mind, Lavana got my pebble back for me. Lavana explained. I was in a tree outside the chief's hut, and he was throwing his pebble up and down in the moonlight. I thought it was a firefly, so I caught it. You should never take a gift back. A gift is a token of love. How can you take back your love? Tandy asked sternly. Tito thought for a while. You are right, Tandy. It must be returned to the chief. I'll take it, Tandy said. I need to go. My grandmother will be looking for me. After Tandy showed her grandmother the pebble, they rushed to the chief. Did the rain wash it up? Asked the chief. No, Tito the Tokolosh from the riverbank is returning his gift to you, Tandy said. Tandy's grandmother laughed. My granddaughter thinks she has seen a Tokolosh. Don't laugh, grandmother, the chief said, gently put his hand on Tandy's shoulder. When I was a little boy, I also saw the Tokolosh. Tandy looked up and saw tears in the chief's eyes. The end.